Find the biggest voices in sport on the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Like the multi-award-winning Fight Disciples podcast with me, Nick Peet, and my sparring partner and best mate, Adam Cattrall. Throughout the week, we discuss the biggest news in fight sports, from Tyson Fury's latest comeback to the return of Conor McGregor and everything in between. Allow us to take you closer to the action at home and abroad as we go behind the scenes at all the monster fights in both boxing and mixed martial arts. Search Fight Disciples and listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Sports Social Podcast Network.
Welcome to the 1905 podcast. Each week, Joe and I bring you our unfiltered takes on the highs, the lows, and everything in between, following the blues from Gate 13 of the Matthew Harding Stand. Let's hit the notes.
Good evening, although it's not a very good evening if you're a Chelsea fan. Chelsea 0, Newcastle 1. And once again, Chelsea FC have turned up, gifted Newcastle 3 points, and off they go down the road, back up to the northeast with 3 points in the bag. They haven't won a game at Stamford Bridge since 2012, and before that, they'd only won 3 games in 58 years, or something along those lines. And yeah, a very, very, I say below par Newcastle. They did what they had to do. I think they had a very easy night. They scored their goal, which, by the way, was shambolic. I'll come to that in a moment. They scored their goal, and they basically just stuck 10 men behind the ball. Excuse me as the van goes past. 10 men behind the ball and soaked up pressure, got themselves in a low block, and we had absolutely zero ideas of how to break it down. And once again, you look at the Villa game last Wednesday night where Villa scored and went 1-0 up, and I said on that voice note, if Aston Villa had decided to go to a low block at that stage, they might have got something out of Chelsea, because we just don't know we do not know how to break down a low block. We've been saying this, and I've said it on the podcast a couple of times, for years. You can go back 3 or 4 years. You can probably go back about 5 years. We really, really struggle. Unless we score the first goal, we don't know how to react to it. And you could see what was going to happen. I've never wanted a Chelsea game to finish more than I have done tonight. And there's been more worse performances than that in the past. We've been beaten by more goals in the past. I just didn't want to watch it. I was borderline, wanted to turn it over. Gladiators was on the other side, and I thought, I'd rather watch that tonight. But yeah, the way it's going at the moment, I really don't think we have the minerals or the players, quite frankly, to get ourselves out of this situation, because we don't seem to be getting any better. If anything, we're getting worse. And I don't think you want to hear me talk about the goalkeeper and the defence, because we've mentioned it so often. Under Pochettino, Chris and I, we didn't have the podcast going at that point, but we spoke about it then, and we said, if we can just get a couple of centre halves or get one in, Levi might be the one. He was at Brighton at the time. I think he might come back, and we could shore up the defence with another quality player. And we're 3 years down the line now with about 14 different managers, and we're still saying the back four is rank, the 2 centre halves are rank, the full backs are okay. Kukureya's a good player, in fairness. Hato's a good player, I think. But Gusto, poor. Reece James is someone you can't rely on. I know he's a fantastic player, probably the best player in his position when he's fit. But he doesn't really play right back anymore, and when he does, you sort of feel like he can't quite give everything, if that makes sense. I just feel he holds back a little bit, and understandable. He's obviously got his injuries and his injury checkered past and stuff, but yeah, I just feel very flat tonight. I'm sort of having a walk around. I've come out of the house. I've not even moaned much indoors, which for me is saying something, because normally when Chelsea are losing or they're drawing or they're just playing as badly as they have done tonight, all I'm doing at home, if I'm at home watching it, that is chirping away to myself, this is poor, that's poor, why are we doing that? Why is he coming on? Why is he coming off? As all football fans should do, you've all got a voice. And I think even my wife is quite surprised that I almost didn't give a fuck about that. I could see what was going to happen. Do you know, when they scored, I just went, I don't think we're going to score. I just couldn't see it. We joked in our WhatsApp group, before the game. We saw the lineup. A friend of ours put the team lineup on, but we didn't see the substitutes, and then we had a little look at that. We had a sub-goalkeeper, that's Sherman Lowe, no Jorgensen, even on the bench tonight, so he's gone from number one goalkeeper to can't even get a place in the squad, which is fucking bizarre. Then we had Sarr, Tosin, Badiashile, Lavia, Mark Guiu, Delap. If that doesn't say everything you need to know about this squad at the moment, then I don't know what to say to you. 3 centre-halves on the bench. A kid that has never played for the club. A striker in Delap, I think he scored 1 league goal this season. And I don't think he's ever going to score ever again. And Mark Guiu, who I'm going to rob this from. Declan's been on the podcast a few times, so I'm going to steal this off of you, mate, because it made me laugh so hard the other night. Has anybody seen Boris Johnson when he plays in the Soccer Aid match, the way he runs around, and then he like rugby tackles some celebrity or some football player? That is exactly how Mark Guiu runs and plays football, and that's basically what we've got coming off the bench. You spent $1.5 billion, and you've got 2 dog shit centre halves, some kid that Barcelona didn't want and has not upgraded or improved at all at Chelsea, Liam Delap, who wouldn't get back in the Ipswich team, quite frankly, a sub-goalkeeper who has never played for the club in his life, and, Mamadou Sarr, who, yeah, he's a very good player. I think he's going to do well, I think. But that is literally what we had on the bench. We've invested so much money in players and this squad, and this is what we're left with. Even the first team, let's be fair, has major holes in it. And we know what the holes are. I'm not going to go over it again. There's no point. I'll be honest with you, I've almost lost a little bit of belief, a little bit of trust. I saw Todd Bowley there tonight in the stand, and I just thought to myself, do you know what, Todd? You said when you took over this football club, you were going to be a man of the people. You'd come out and be transparent. You'd communicate. Roman never communicated. You want to be that leader. And also, Baghdad Gabali as well. I mean, he didn't actually say those words, but he is part of the ownership group. So he's also in this conversation. They don't come and talk to the fans. They don't tell us what they're doing. They're happy to sit there. Yes, they're investing money. And yes, we've said we're quite pleased they invest in the team and stuff. But the way they're doing it and the sort of the pig-headedness around it. When you think about Liam Rosenior tonight, he's going to get questioned a lot about the squad and the game, and they lost again, and it's another home defeat and all the rest of it. And yes, he has, on the face of it, got some good players. Yes, of course he has. But you think to yourself, what did they do in January? Now, I didn't even really want Chelsea to go and spend loads of money in January, but you were going to get the same results, weren't you? Let's be honest with you. You haven't changed anything. You haven't improved the defence, really. Okay, you've brought back Sarr, fair enough. But he's been fairly underused. The games he has played, I think we've all thought he's done quite well. A big imposing centre-back, and maybe they don't want to kind of give him too much responsibility too soon, or are they saying to people like Fofana, well, we paid 70 million for you, mate. So you're our man, you're our guy. If you're fit, you're going to play. But he's not good enough. He's just not good enough anymore. We need to admit it. Stop, messing around. Just have done with it. Get rid of him. In the summer, he's got to go. There's so many players in this team that need to go. And this isn't knee-jerk off of one game. We have been dreadful for most of the season. Let's be honest with you. I think Chris in our WhatsApp group, not our Chris Sheen, another Chris Smudger, he said, if we were watching Enzo Maresca's Chelsea tonight, you'd believe it. And that's exactly what happened. It was just short passes, sideways and back, the occasional launch into the box. And the end product was exactly the same. We didn't go anywhere with the ball. We created a few things. We actually probably had our best spell before Newcastle scored. I thought we looked in control for large parts for the first 20 minutes. And you did think at that stage, if we were to score, things might have been very different. But the facts are we didn't. And Newcastle have come out, scored their goal, and let's go into that goal very, very quickly. What the actual fuck was that all about? Reece James dropping into the two between the two centre backs, and the centre halves basically were split like wide apart. Fofana and Trev were miles apart, and you could drive an absolute Arctic lorry through the Chelsea's two centre backs, and Reece James has to run back from midfield to try and stop, was it Willock, knocking the ball into Anthony Gordon. And then nobody ran with Gordon either. That is the most, well, not the most, but it is a calamitous goal to concede. It's no better. You know, I dug Toasting out on Badia Shield last week against Wrexham. It's no better than the big punt over the top. You literally couldn't make that go up. The two centre-backs, basically, I don't know, 70 yards apart. And Reece James mopping up the middle. Just talk about don't have your most precious player, or one of your most precious players, having to run back from the halfway line to try and stop a counter-attack. It makes no sense. Absolutely no sense whatsoever. And how we try and defend that goal to the media, I just don't know. Because it's shambolic. It is a shambolic goal. We go 1-0 down. And then it was, the rest of the first half was as bad as you'll see. It really was as bad as you'll see. And I think Chris and I have been very pro Liam Rosina on this podcast for a while. And I think we probably still are. I don't think that's changed. You don't change your opinion on one game. But what you have to say is that I think we had one clean sheet in 14 games. The defence has been terrible, like really bad. Now, if you're trying to score more goals and be more entertaining, we called him out a few weeks ago and said that we were enjoying the football. We were enjoying what we're seeing. But that's like when you get the new manager bounce. You enjoy it for a while because you've been so starved of any kind of fun and excitement. Then over time, as your team starts to win, you then need to start seeing your defence and your manager improve that area of the field as well. You can't change everything in the first few weeks. So he's obviously concentrated on Chelsea playing a bit more attacking football, being a bit more expansive, and ultimately we have scored a lot more goals. But the goals we're conceding at the other end it's been really scary actually. And when you go back through the results, Chris went through some of them the other day. He didn't mention half of them, to be quite honest with you. And that's where I'm really worried about it. And you could argue, you could make excuses for anybody. You could say that maybe Chelsea had one eye on the PSG game in midweek. I don't think we really did. I know Caicedo came off a little bit earlier than we would have probably liked, but he was on a yellow card as well. But Newcastle made 6 changes to their team. Newcastle, who, you know, they've really got quite a, it's not a Mickey Mouse team. That is very, very unfair. But they're what I class as honest players. Like Byrne came on a sub, but Thior at the back, and Voltemada, and Harvey Barnes, Joe Willock, Joseph Murphy. They don't scream world class. Of course, they're an excellent bunch of football players. They really are. But do you know what I'm trying to say here? You look at some of the players that we've supposedly got and you think, oh, he wouldn't get in the Chelsea team. He wouldn't get in the Chelsea team. But Now you have to start questioning a few of these players, because when we go a goal down or we get pegged back to a 1-1 draw, you don't really see it. We did see it against Aston Villa, to be fair, last week. But other than that, I've not really seen it in this Chelsea team very much. We're quite scared. We play quite scared. Stamford Bridge is becoming a little bit of a poison chalice. The players seem very, very uneasy. The crowd are definitely getting very, very restless. I was surprised there wasn't more boos at half time, if I'm honest with you. I'm sort of pleased there wasn't, because I think that sort of gets at Liam Rosina a little bit, and I don't think that he is to blame. And I know there'll be people on here saying that he's a manager from Strasbourg and he's a blue cone man and all that. And do you know what? He might well be. I'm not defending it. He might well be. But it's not his fault. He has only got the players he's got to pick from. The bench he's got tonight is all he's got. It just shows you where we are as a team. The sporting directors, Chris mentioned it again a few weeks ago, we've never heard them speak. Why can't they come and say what the plan is? And it was interesting to hear Liam Rosina talk about the squad before the game even kicked off tonight. He said something along the lines of, he was asked about the squad, and he said, you'll see next season, you'll see what's going to happen. Then he started talking about getting in the Champions League, and you need to be in the Champions League to be, the stature of your club means a lot. It shows you're a big team and all the rest of it. The way Chelsea are playing, they're not getting in the Champions League, are they? You just can't see them beating Everton next week. You can't see them beating United and Man City at home back to back. Maybe they will. Chelsea surprise you. They do mad things. But based off tonight's performance, if they don't pick up any points against them, that will be it. That will be it. Because not everybody is going to lose and draw all season long. These teams will start picking up their points, as in Liverpool and Villa now will get spurred on by that defeat by Chelsea. They'll probably go and win again, and the points gap will increase again. And with every league game that goes by, you're just basically falling further and further away. And tonight was a huge opportunity to get level on points with Villa and really put the pressure on them, but we've just let them off the hook. And it's not for the first time. And I know I haven't spoke to Chris personally yet. I know I have a feeling that he is as disappointed as me. And I think we're both at a stage where we're like, it's hard to keep coming on and having to say the same things. And we don't want to repeat ourselves. We really, really don't. But the sad truth is, we've got a very expensive assembled squad of players, half of which are not very good. And where they're going to find another 250 million in the summer to replenish some of these players that need to leave, I just don't know. They will sell some players, they will bring some money in, but not for the money they think they're going to get. And if we are going to buy experienced players, then they're going to cost a fair few quid, and they're going to want humongous salaries. So all the money that we've spent in the past on players, where is it going to come from? Because even though we might have it sitting in the bank, you can't actively spend it because of FFP and the UEFA rules on finances. So yeah, I'm very concerned. I'm very concerned with how the season is panning out. I know we have Port Vale in the cup. I think that might be, I'm not sure when that is actually, if we're playing Everton before then or after them. I haven't got the fixture list in front of me, I can't remember. But yeah, I'm terribly saddened tonight. I see a team wilting under pressure. And I think when you're not playing for anything, when you're a team that's just hoping to get the Champions League like last season, and to be fair, in the Pochettino era, even though we finished 6th that season, you're not expecting, when youngsters are not expected to do stuff and they finish 5th or 6th or 4th, you go, oh, that was good. Oh, they did all right, didn't they, in the end? And then when the pressure ramps up on them and they have to finish 4th is the bare minimum, and they start to lose games and they get pegged back in games they're winning, that's when you start to see it all crumble down. And unfortunately, not for the first time, you're going to hear me say, we have no proper experience really in this team, no real leaders to sort the dressing room out. And this huddle, I'm not being funny, I'm sorry. It was quite funny against Aston Villa, this huddle in the middle of the pitch. But the referee was in the middle of the huddle before the game kicked off. I mean, if that isn't just meme TV, then I don't know what is. That is class personified. Only Chelsea could do something like that. Oh my God. I'm really disappointed. I need to have a sleep on it. I'll come back tomorrow and do a second note with some kind of clarity maybe. But at the moment, the waters at Chelsea are extremely muddy. And yeah, it's hard to see past your last result at the moment. And a 5-2 pasting in Paris, followed by this dreadful performance against Newcastle. And I'm just going to remind you, Newcastle played Barcelona and changed 6 players tonight. Just let that sink in. They changed 6 players. And they basically waltzed to victory. Worrying times at Chelsea. Very worrying times.
Oh, Chelsea. Much like Joe, I am just feeling, I think, quite despondent about what I've seen there and about Chelsea at the moment. It's funny, Joe and I hadn't spoken really much about the game today and about what we're going to say in the voice note, so I've obviously just listened to what Joe said. And we're so aligned in our feeling about the game, actually. And I mean, my feeling is almost just numb to what I've seen and the result, and almost did have that feeling, as Joe said. As soon as you see, we've seen this Chelsea team far too often to know that, oh no, we're in one of those moods where we're just going to pass the ball around, pass and pass and pass. And Newcastle watching us so happy to see us just do it, thinking, yeah, they haven't got an idea, have they? They've got no idea how to break us down. And I am feeling I think really disappointed with how our season has panned out, if I'm being honest. I'll talk about the Newcastle game in a bit more detail in a second, but I think the first thing I want to get across is just, I had really high hopes this season that after what had been a really good end to last season, a very good summer, even looking, pretty good actually in pre-season, that we would see Chelsea go up to the next level, see us continuing to grow as a team, not challenge for the league yet, but be comfortably top 3 or 4, decent run in the Champions League, and just have that feeling that we're growing up as a team. We're a grown-up side. We've got rid of the crazy inconsistency, going from sublime to the ridiculous from week to week, and just look like a grown-up team with a bit more of a grown-up squad, seeing the leaders before our eyes. And let's face it, we're no better. Let's face it, we are no better than we were, I'm going to argue, 2 years ago, and I'll come on to that shortly. But how little progress we seem to be making, having spent all that money, is incredibly disappointing. Let's talk about the Newcastle game itself. I think, honestly, going into it, I was relatively confident, and for the main reason being is what I said pre-match in the preview for the game. I just felt like a much bigger game to us than Newcastle. Newcastle obviously very much still in their Champions League tie, unlike us. Big game in Barcelona in midweek. And I just had the feeling that for them, they don't have a great record at Stamford Bridge at all. They'd come down, and as long as we started well, we got an early goal maybe, they'd be a little bit like, look, lads, bigger fish to fry on Wednesday. Anthony Gordon comes off after an hour thinking, look, just rest yourself. Let's do the damage in midweek. And obviously they made 6 changes. We only made a couple. The lineup they had actually was, this is disappointingly strong. I thought they might have rested and rotated a bit more, but no, fair play to them. But to be honest, the attitude and I think general sort of feel about the game immediately was like, I know Newcastle were really up for this. Like, credit to them. They just seemed to want it so much more than we did. And bear in mind, really in the league, they've got nothing to play for. And obviously, as I said, much bigger game for them in midweek. Chelsea was so flat, just so flat. I mean, right from almost as soon as Newcastle scored and they got back into that nice low block, Chelsea just was so flat. And there was a little spell right at the start of the second half that we looked like we had a bit more energy about them. Rosina had obviously read the right act and come out with a bit more, but it didn't last long. And the lack of intensity across the board was painful. It was really, really painful to watch. And, you know, again, credit to Newcastle. I think they were putting their bodies on the line, worthy of the win, worthy of the clean sheet, and we'll go home really happy with that. Thoroughly deserved it. You don't even look at it and think, oh, Chelsea, you know, sometimes you have these games and do everything but score, and the goalkeeper's made a load of great saves and this, that, and the other. We didn't test him enough, anywhere near. I mean, Reece James hits a good free kick off the post late on. And then the best chance really we had in open play falls to, let's face it, probably the last man you want to, in Liam Delap, who I would argue has definitely been one of the most disappointing signings in recent years for Chelsea. It wasn't for huge money, but I think a lot of us thought him coming in was a real snip at 30 million. We'd seen what he'd done for Ipswich, you know, against us, notably. He just looks a shadow of the player, doesn't he? I don't know what's going on. I don't know if it's physical, I don't know if it's mental. His confidence looks shot. And that chance he had kind of summed up his whole Chelsea career to date, didn't it? Comes at him, you know, fairly quickly on his left side. But he's got to hit the target. He's 10, 11 yards out. He's got to hit the target. Keeper pulls off a worldy save, then fair play. But to miss the target again, it was dreadful. And it is a little bit of a sequence of things like that we're seeing for him. We let him off almost lightly, but to not hit the target when he had that chance with the last kick of the game against Burnley when it was 1-0, I thought was poor. He basically put it nearly out the ground. He obviously comes on against PSG, has that shot on the right hand side, which he swipes terribly out of play for a goal kick. And then again today, just doesn't do much, does he? He doesn't worry you, I don't think, as a defender. And at the moment, you're looking at him thinking you can't see anything but Chelsea wanting to cut the losses with him in the summer, because, you know, when he first came back in after injury, you almost excused it and thought, oh, he's just getting back to fit again. But he's played so many minutes and shown so little. It's been a disaster, let's face it. You know, the pragmatic view on today is that Chelsea were, you know, physically and emotionally drained after the night in Paris. I think you could see that to a certain extent. You could maybe forgive it in some way, but it's Saturday night at home in front of your fans. Stamford Bridge has never really felt much flatter than this in my memory. I don't remember the fan base sort of feeling so disconnected from what they're seeing on the pitch. Normally, when you have spells like this, and we've had spells over the last 30 odd years I've been going, it can be fixed. It will be short term, and the manager can fix it, because it's normally down to not loving the football that you're seeing under, I don't know, Rafa Benitez or Andre Villas-Boas, or whoever you want to say. But this isn't a Rosina thing, is it? As Joe said, it's not about Liam Rosina. It's much deeper than that, the problem. And I think the disconnect with the fans is much, much deeper. And I think that's the worrying thing. And that's the biggest, I guess, problem and concern, which maybe I'll go on to a little bit more in a second. I think on Rosina, if I was to criticise him for the game today, I think the lack of rotation was a mistake, actually. Newcastle, I think Joe said, made 6 changes. I think Chelsea only made 2, which would have been obviously Sanchez coming in goal. I mean, what a mess, really, that whole change has been, really, an unnecessary thing that Rosini did there. I think a big mistake. And obviously Garnacho coming in for Neto, he was suspended for being an idiot. But when I look at who could have come in Andre Santos, who really transformed the way we were playing, certainly out from the back under Rosinia, suddenly seems to be completely out of favour, having struggled a little bit at Arsenal, which just seems a little bit bizarre. But I'd have liked to have seen him come in fresh today. I think it would have been a good game for Hato to come in, probably for Cucurella at left back again, coming in fresh. And I certainly would have liked to have seen Mamadou Sarr come in, probably for Fofana, who, by the way, he's another one, isn't he, in terms of disaster, disappointing signings. Maybe for different reasons for Delap, because I think his injuries. Clearly, his injuries have done him, but he is not the player that Chelsea bought from Leicester anymore. And this, again, that was best part of what, four, it's coming up to 5 years ago, I think. Maybe it's 4 years ago, but it's insane. I mean, it's a long time he's been at Chelsea and hardly played, and he's not getting any better, is he? Let's face it. He just doesn't have the physicality and the pace that he used to have. And he's another one that you're looking at in the summer and thinking Chelsea have got to fix that problem. But I think a bit more rotation, probably matching a similar sort of number that Newcastle did, I think would have helped us. And I think it's a bit of a strange one that he did that. It was almost like he wanted to say, look, you played so well in Paris, I'm not going to change it. But to be honest, it was a very different occasion, and we just struggled. We struggled from the off. But yeah, well done to Newcastle. For us, it's quite a damaging result, I think, in the top 4 race, or the top 5 race for Champions League. Obviously, after that Villa win, we're all feeling so buoyant, thinking we put ourselves in a really good position now. But it's a massive step backwards. And obviously, all of our rivals yet to play this weekend. And if they pick up good wins, then we will be, off it again, and kind of with a bit of a mountain to climb, as Joe says, particularly with the upcoming games that we've got with Everton, City and United. It's not going to get any easier. The bigger picture then, it's funny that Joe mentioned Pochettino earlier in passing, because I'd written the note down to myself to talk about Pochettino. Not him himself, but looking back to sort of this time 2 years ago and thinking, have we improved significantly in that time, like you would have hoped we would? So I think with this model, I've mentioned this before on the pod, but I think with this model of buying young players and effectively investing in that idea of youth, I think it's imperative that as a club, you're seeing progress and you are seeing to be moving forward. And I think the biggest worry that Chelsea have right at this moment in time is, I'm not sure we are seeing progress. And I think when you're not seeing progress and that is your model, it creates a lot of questions, I think, for fans, for the media, and probably for the players themselves, for those top players looking at around them and going, like I'll give you an example. 2 years ago, if I'm Cole Palmer, I'm thinking 2 years ago, in that Pochettino team, we had Petrovic in goal. And I'm thinking, is Sanchez massively better than Petrovic? No. And some would probably say, actually, he's worse. And you can debate that. It's a tight one. He's looking at the centre-backs thinking, 2 years ago, I looked up this team, but I almost wanted to remind myself of kind of what the team was then. And it was Thiago Silva often at centre-back, obviously, at the end of his time at Chelsea. So it wasn't the peak Silva, but it's Thiago Silva, alongside often the Badiashile, who just coming in was doing fairly well. And I'm thinking that version of Badiashile was very much better than this one, by the way, the current version. But he's looking at that thinking, are we significantly better now than we were then? I mean, no. And then midfield, basically the same, because it was Caicedo and Enzo coming through at that point. And then the people he had around him up front in that attack, we talk now of a lack of consistency. I mean, the guys we had around in them were the likes of Noni Madueke, Mudryk, obviously Nicholas Jackson up front. And I'm thinking, look at those guys and who we have now: Garnacho, Neto. I think João Pedro, a level up on Jackson just about, and certainly on his recent form has been well ahead of him. But you'd have Jackson in the squad now, wouldn't you? Certainly over Delap. And again, I look at that and think, the wingers are about the same. They're not massively better, are they? And at that point, 2 years ago, obviously we just missed out on getting into the Champions League despite a really good end to the season. We got to the League Cup final, obviously lost to Liverpool, got to the FA Cup semi-final, lost to Man City. And you're looking at us and thinking, oh, we're not far off. As Joe mentioned before, we're not a million miles off. We kind of go from the sublime to the ridiculous. That was the feeling of that time. I looked back at it, and this was the era, do you remember about this time 2 years ago, where in the space of about 3 weeks, we won 6-0 against Everton, lost 5-0 at Arsenal, and then won 5-0 against West Ham. And we were, enigmatic. You just didn't know what you were going to get at any one time. And Palmer was unbelievable, wasn't he, that season? It was certainly the best Palmer we've seen. But we looked raw and immature, and like we didn't quite know how to play as a football team yet. But if you'd said to any of us then, look, most of this group's going to be pretty much the same. That core contingent of your top players will still be there. We'll have changed the players around them a little bit. Wingers, the goalkeeper will have changed, a couple of centre-backs and stuff. But in 2 years' time, they're all going to be together. And you would have said to them, or said to us, sorry, by the way, nothing's going to have changed. You're still going to be 1 minute brilliant, 1 minute awful. You don't know what you're going to get. You're going to be a bit slow some weeks, passive, and there's no real sign of clear leadership, etc. I think we would have. Well, I think we all know how we'd feel, and I think it's how I'm feeling right now. Oh, it's so disappointing. It's so disappointing, and I've really tried and believed, actually, not tried. I've believed that the model could work, and it could be seen as smart in some way, but yeah, my faith has been wavering, and I think it is close to dead right now. I think we'll do definitely late as the season goes on. We're going to do a full breakdown of the squad, and I guess what we think needs to happen in the summer. So I won't do that now, because I think Joe and I will want to sit down and do that properly. But I can tell you one thing: there's going to be a good 10 or 11 players on that list of players in the squad right now that we fundamentally don't believe are good enough for Chelsea and that should be sold in the summer. And the truth is, all of them have been bought under this ownership and with these sporting directors. So that in itself is a shambles. A deeper chat, I think, has to be had about the model and the reluctance to pay top wages and buy experience. I know it's been talked about a lot, but it is clearly a problem, and it's clearly the reason that we are 2 years on and don't feel like we've seen significant progress. Spurs fans, one of my best friends is a Spurs fan for his sins. Again, there's always someone worse out there than you, and right now it's Spurs. But Spurs fans have always criticised their ownership for effectively not paying top wages and not being willing to go out and buy the sort of players that they needed to go to the next level. Look at where they are now. My worry with Chelsea is that if this ownership continues to be stubborn and refuse to change from the model, we are going to never improve, and obviously could do us Spurs, if we want to do the extreme version, but certainly aren't going to get to where we as fans want Chelsea to go. You only have to look at, Joe mentioned the January window. You only have to look at what Man City have done with the recent signings. Obviously, Donnarumma in the summer was great, but Mark Gay and Semenyo in January, they're not clever signings. They're not like brilliant finds and really smart. They're just really good Premier League signings, good Premier League players. In Gay's case, and Donnarumma's case, you're really buying experience. The thing is, you're paying top wages. You've got to pay top wages for these guys. It's what Chelsea, obviously under Roman, did. Always have one of the highest wage bills. Wouldn't always pay the top fees. I think we were pretty good in the fees market. Obviously, would sell very well as well, but it's wages that makes the big difference. And this ownership obviously inherited a couple of real stinkers of wages that they felt, like Lukaku, that was just a real problem to get off the books. They created obviously stinkers of their own early on with people like Raheem Sterling that they clearly don't want to do again. But you have to have a 10% rule that you break for certain types of players, in my opinion. And you're never going to see, I don't think, Chelsea get to the top level unless you you have 2 or 3 players who break the wage bill. It used to be, in that we always hark back to the great Chelsea team under Mourinho and that era. And the one thing you can always say, the spine that we'll always talk about, Cech, Terry, Lampard, Drogba, they were the top earners. Those were the 4 who earned more money than anyone else. They were the guys on the big money, and then everyone else was one tier below. You need to make sure that you're willing to go up that high for your top tier players and be able to go and bring in 1 or 2 players like that if you need it, that will be on that top money. It's why we managed to keep Eden Hazard for so long. Real Madrid sniffed around him for the best part of 4 or 5 years before they even got him. But we had him he was the highest paid player at the club. He was on a really good high, probably one of the top earners in the Premier League as well. So there was no risk of losing him in that respect. And my worry with Chelsea is they're never going to compete until they do that. I mean, there's clearly some really smart people at the club. They clearly are, because they've done some good stuff. They've clearly sold the project incredibly well to get players like Esteval and so many others that we've managed to bring into the club. There's clearly a belief somewhere that Chelsea are building something. But you've got to see progress. And until they address the balance of that squad, I just don't think we're going to get anywhere near to where we want to get to. I'll leave it there. And as Joe says, we'll come back tomorrow with a little bit more. But yeah, a really, really sobering evening watching Chelsea. A disappointing week for us all round. And yeah, a lot to think about.
Hello and welcome back to the 1905 podcast. Yeah, it's a bright and sunny, very windy Mothering Sunday here, and in the UK. I'm not sure if you celebrate that across the world like we do, but yeah, I hope you've all been to see your mum, got her some flowers and a card, and given her a big hug if possible. And yeah, it sort of has given me a chance to take my mind off Chelsea, which I badly needed to do because they are driving me up the fucking wall. Oh, goodness me. My son has played this morning. They had a very good game, a close 4-3 defeat. And he scored and he got an assist, so he'll be very pleased with that. But overall, yeah, it's been a testing weekend if you are a Chelsea fan, because you're probably going to see Liverpool dismantle Spurs later on. Man United and Aston Villa play each other today, and in a game that they both can't win, someone was dropping points, if not both of them. Chelsea have missed a really, really big trick here to go right up the backside of Aston Villa or Man United and really push for that top 4 or 5 position and make life a bit easier for themselves, because games coming up against the 2 Manchester teams and what have you is going to really put us in a position, if we don't win them, well, it really is good night, and we won't catch the other sides. And at the moment, you just can't see us playing to that sort of level. We have moments in games like we did against PSG where I thought for 45, 60 minutes, give or take here and there, we were wonderful to watch, like absolutely wonderful to watch, really, really good. And I always think in those games, the players get up for it. The atmosphere is great. They know it's an important game. You're playing against the current European champions. They dislike you because you beat them in the Club World Cup final last year. There was a lot on the game, and you could see the level of performance went up hugely. And Chris makes a very good point that maybe they were a bit hungover from that game. And maybe there was a little bit of a hangover from the fact that we ended up losing 3 goals in the last 15 minutes. Probably 2 of them at the very, very least were Chelsea errors, or could have done better. Obviously the Jorgensen one where he passes out, terrible. And then at 4-2, when Neto has made the push on the ball boy and there was a bit of a commotion, we never set ourselves right for that one. And we don't defend it very well. And even the shot that comes in for the 5th goal, Jorgensen sort of dives over the ball a little bit, and he should have easily saved that, in my opinion. And it sort of had that feel about it yesterday. I thought for the first 15 or so minutes, Chelsea were quite good. They definitely were the more likely team to score. But I feel like with Chelsea sometimes, a lot of the ball was sometimes falls to the wrong players. or on their wrong foot or whatever. And it had that feel about it yesterday. Even the Fofana chance from the header, a free header, 8 yards out, and he knocks it over the bar. Like, at this level, you have to at least hit the target. I always tell my kids, make him make a save. Make the goalie save it. From that distance, if it's a really difficult chance, of course, these things you're going to miss sometimes to put the ball wider over the bar. But from that distance, under no pressure, it's a really big one. And I think that Chelsea are so reliant on getting that first goal. That's what makes us nervous as a fan base. I think when we go 1-0 up, you do tend to relax a little bit. And I know we have been pegged back in games this season, I know that. But from a feeling perspective, you just go, oh, okay, we've got the lead here. We can sort of kick on. The other team have got to come out now. So that's going to give us a good chance to get more opportunities. The moment Newcastle scored, I don't know about anybody else, but I had my head in my hands and I just said to my family, I was like, I just don't think we're going to do this. I just don't think we're going to do it. My son was like, but you never know. I said, Leo, I've been doing this for the best part of following the team, the best part of about 36, 37 years. You kind of know what's going to happen. And this modern Chelsea have just got very little backbone. And I don't mean that to be horrible to some of the players, because they're not all like that. There are some stand-up people that put the foot in and they will put their mind to it when the going gets tough. But there's a few in the team that you just kind of go, I'm not sure you fancy it after this. And that's the way it played out yesterday. It was lots of sideways passing, lots of safe passing. No one really wanted to be the person to make that little killer pass through to somebody to create an angle or create a chance for someone. It was all in front of everyone. And the constant of recycling of possession, it was Enzo Maresca-esque. And I know Liam Rosenior, to his credit, doesn't really set his teams up like that. But once again, we wasted 45 minutes of the first half, really. And then when we came out, there was a little bit of a go for a few minutes. But did we really look like scoring? Like Chris said, the Delap chance that got put back to him, he knocked it basically into the top tier of the Matthew Harding stand. I mean, it's just not good enough, is it? It really is. There's lots of stuff going around about Liam Delap today. Obviously, Fofana not tracking his man for the goal. This is basic stuff. As a number 9 for whichever team you play for, you are judged on goals and you are judged on chances created for other people. How unselfish you are. And to be fair to Delap, he's not doing any of it. He's not really helping the team out in terms of winning the ball back, perhaps, or making those channel runs and bringing other people into play, or holding the ball up great, or flicking balls on for people. He's doing nothing, and I've said this for months now. Months. I know he's all we've got. I know that, but what do we do? Because he's just terrible. He's terrible, and I really wanted it to work for him. I'm sure he's a great guy, but he looks like he clearly can do it in the Premier League because he did it last year. But you just wonder, you're playing for Ipswich, there's no pressure on you. If they go down, no one gives a shit. They're expected to go down. Oh, we got 12 goals along the way. Oh, brilliant, well done. But when you're having to do it, like, you can't fail. That's when the pressure tells on people. And you look at him now and you just think, he actually doesn't, he doesn't strike me as someone that's low on confidence in terms of the way he comes on. He always looks like he's up for it. He always looks like he's ready for the game. But the moment his first touch comes, it bounces off him, or, like Chris mentioned, the shot against PSG, which he's sliced out of play. Like, he's not a threat. And the moment, if João Pedro was to get injured, I absolutely would say we're done. If he was to get injured this week or next week for the run-in and miss 4 or 5 games, I cannot see Liam Delap coming into this side and being a threat. I mean, I've mentioned it before about Pedro Neto. We did it against Barcelona. I wouldn't mind seeing him at times play off of João Pedro. I think he would be a very, very good option. Instead of playing Palmer there all the time, mix it up and use Neto's pace, because I don't think he's always utilised that well. I think he's quite good at running into open space. And against Barcelona, he ran them ragged. But we've not really seen that since. And it won't work every week and it won't work every game. but you could at least trial it for 20, 30 minutes in a match. Give it a go. I know Neto wasn't available yesterday, but yeah, I just think there's so much to do in the offensive third of the field. And then you look at the back and the same mistakes keep happening. We either can see goals from corners or like Wrexham, the ball over the top. Two centre-backs don't read it. The goalkeeper comes to get it, then goes back to his goal line and they score. Or yesterday, again, you could drive any articulated lorry, bus and yacht all at the same time, right through the Chelsea defence. A simple ground pass here, a ground, not some swaz ball like Fabregas played against Watford all those years ago, some simple pass right through the middle. Reece James is the wrong side of Willock. Trev and Fofana are miles apart, and then Fofana doesn't track Gordon back to the box. Willock runs back, taps it across, and it's 1-0 to Newcastle. And these are the same mistakes we make every single week, and I just really, really am struggling to see how top-level Premier League defenders, supposedly, are dealing with these situations. We can't defend set pieces very well from free kicks or corners. The goalkeeper flaps at everything. Sometimes he comes for them and claims them really well, and you go, oh, yeah, great. Other times he just literally fumbles the ball outside his box or passes one out from the back aimlessly to nobody under no pressure, and you've gone from winning the game 1-0 to suddenly it's 1-1, and then within 5 more minutes it's 2-1 to the other side because you've lost all your momentum in the game. So yeah, it's a worrying time at the moment for Chelsea. We really are, I think, struggling as a fan base to connect to Bowley and Eghbali again. I think there were some people, Chris and I have been trying to make a brave face of it with the ownership and give them some credit along the way about trying to do things differently and having a plan. But I think the plan is fine by bringing in young players. That's not an issue. The issue is you have to bring in experience alongside them. And this pig-headedness to not do that is where I think we're going to continue to come unstuck until it happens. Now, Liam Rosina, like I said yesterday, my previous voice note, has mentioned that maybe there's going to be a change of this in the summer. But again, there's so much to do. There's so many players to ship out that can you do all of that in one summer? I just don't think you can. And also, if Chelsea don't make the Champions League, you are almost certainly looking at a rung of player below that level. And if Chelsea then pay higher wages to not so good experienced players, but they get it in because they think the fan base wants to see that, then you're going to end up with a really catastrophic position of players you then can't shift out the team again. Wow. It's hard. It's very, very hard because as a Chelsea fan, I feel very privileged to have seen them win all the trophies. You know, they've been wonderful over the last 30 years or so. And before then even, they were always there or thereabouts in finals or semi-finals, and they gave us things to cheer and get excited about. And I just feel as though in a matter of like 4 years, we've taken the best, I think one of the best domestic managers in Thomas Tuchel away from the club. We couldn't make it work with him. And I know he had his issues at the time. We weren't getting great results when he left. But you could see the bigger picture with him. If you got it right, and you'd allowed him to bring in his players the way he wanted it to be done, you wouldn't be in this position. You just wouldn't. Thomas Tuchel could still be managing this team now, and we could have multiple trophies in the bag. I do honestly believe that. I think that is the biggest. I see him at the ground yesterday, and I just think to myself, oh my God, why did we get rid of you? Like, why? Like, I liked him because he was an arsehole. He gave managers and other teams absolute hell. He had no respect for Pep. None. Couldn't give a monkey about Pep. He gave him dog's abuse on the sideline. You need people like him in the team leading your club. And the facts are, he will demand so much of his players. He's the sort of guy that gets 10% extra out of everybody because he's been there and done it and got the T-shirt. And he was that manager at the time when he was at Chelsea that every single body wanted to copy. They wanted to copy his tactics. They wanted to copy the way he was playing, the way he played Man City. You know, he would set his teams up, and we were very dominant over Man City in that time. But you look at us now and you just think to yourself, bloody hell, we are an absolute far cry. We go to Man City and we get absolutely dicked on. And we go to teams like Liverpool, we go to Arsenal, and we don't even look like winning. This is the really concerning thing for me, is that against the big teams, particularly away from home as well, like, just don't look like getting a result. Like, we are hoping for a draw. Like, that's where we are. We are hoping for a draw. And there would have been teams when Chelsea had Thomas Tuchel in charge, even though he had this little dodgy spell of about 4 or 5 weeks or whatever before he left, there would be teams across Europe and across the Premier League going, thank God he's gone. Thank God he has left Chelsea, because with him in charge, they are a dangerous outfit and he will get that right. But sadly, these owners and these sporting directors just could not get on board with him. They couldn't align with the things that they wanted to do. And now you're looking at a team that is just basically full of newbies. New players, new sporting directors, new owners, new chefs, new kitmen probably. Like, everybody's just new. And I think starting from scratch, when you've got all that history and the people that were at the club for years, when it all goes, there's nothing else to cling on to. Like, I still don't see why John Terry cannot be brought into this setup. A club icon that still works for the club in the academy. Bring him over to the main building every so often and have a chat with the players. I'm sure maybe he does. Maybe he does have chats with the players at lunchtime and things. He says he's not in their building, so I don't think he actually does. But I can only assume the only reason he's not brought in is because they don't want to undermine people like Reece James, the captain of the club. John Terry coming over and saying, look, in my day, if this situation happened, we would handle it like this. You need to do this. But Reece might benefit from that. Reece might want to know what happened back in the day. If people had rows and stuff. That's what it takes, and that's what it takes. I mean, do you want to win or do you not want to win? It's just how it goes. I mean, we're just happy to kind of be one of the top 6, it seems. And simply qualifying for the Champions League is not good enough. At the start of the season, you should be looking for a club like Chelsea. We should be looking to win the league. And if we don't win the league, it's second place. If it's not second place, it's third. Like, it has to be like that. It can't be that we hope at the start of the season we finish in the top 4. And if it goes wrong, you finish 8th. That can't be what we're all about. This is supposed to be a top European football side. And based on what we've seen yesterday and for most of the season, we just look an average football team in the Premier League. We look no better than most other sides, having spent a ton of money. And yeah, it's just getting quite depressing now, watching the same rinse and repeat performances. And I think that people will, at some point, really start to get the hump. I mean, people are starting to get the hump now, let's be fair, because there has to be some resemblance of Chelsea in this squad, and I don't think enough of us see that. Too many players are going to want out. If the best players, if you're Cole Palmer, for example, are you going to want to hang around in this Chelsea team and see what happens in the summer? Or are you going to just go, do you know what? I'm going to hand in a transfer request because I can't sit and do this for the next 6 years of my life. We can't. I'm not going to go and be happy at finishing 4th every year. I want a proper title challenge. I'm running out of time. If the sporting directors think that he's going to hang around for 6 more seasons playing like this, in a squad like this, then they're absolutely mad. He's going to want to go. And rightly so. If you're as good as he is, then, yeah, you kind of deserve the right to go and play for a better team and a better squad of players. So, yeah, it sort of affects everything, really. The decisions they make now are the decisions they're going to make for the future. And I think those players need to see that there's been a change in the direction of what's going to happen. If you've just got good, honest young players, they're happily stick around as a group. But world-class players that jump out from the pack, like Caicedo, Palmer, and probably João Pedro, those players are going to want to see a real change in the way that this club, this dream, was sold to them. And don't be so bloody stupid to think that they're going to hang around forever, waiting for the project to suddenly click into place, because it might never happen and their career will be over. So, you know, their best years are sort of right now. They're getting to that stage where they're coming into their peak. So you need to put a squad of players around them that's capable of actually doing something. Anyway, there's too many questions and answers at the moment, I'm afraid. And until we see some kind of pattern and change within this sporting director ownership group, then I don't see it changing anytime soon. But maybe this season, if it goes wrong, very wrong at the end, then it might be the kick up the arse they need to say, well, we've tried that, it didn't work, and we are going to have to now go and get some proper players. because Palmer and they'll be looking at Kai Havertz, they'll be looking at Noni Madueke, Kepa, and they'll be saying, well, look, they're on the verge of getting a Premier League title. Like Noni Madueke isn't fit enough to lace Cole Palmer's boots, and yet he's going to be sitting there with a Premier League title this season, and that's going to sting. That's going to smart a little bit, and that's where I think the envy and the jealousy in some ways is going to come to the forefront, and you can't be as good as Cole Palmer and be sitting around and languishing in the Europa League, Conference League, cusp of the Champions League places year after year after year. It's not really acceptable. If you're not going to spend very much money and you're going to do it on a shoestring budget, then you could sort of say that's what we deserved. But when you're spending the kind of cash that we've spent, you need to start seeing some proper results. And I think these players themselves will start voting with their voices by saying, I want out before long if you're not very careful. So a lot for the ownership to think about, a lot for the sporting directors to think about. And it comes to the stage now where you cannot hurt anybody's feelings. If you don't think the goalkeepers are good enough, they have to go. If the centre halves aren't good enough, they have to go. If your fullbacks aren't good enough, they have to go. And it's just, you have to do this now. This is not a game you're playing. You're running a proper, experienced, winning Premier League football side. And you'd be forgiven if this wasn't like Gary Neville and Paul Scholes and David Beckham running Salford. Get a proper sponsor of your football shirt, not these temporary AI ones that drive you nuts. Get yourself some proper players, pay them some proper wages, because like Chris said, 3 or 4 top earners in this side will transform quite a lot overnight. Stop messing around with set-piece coaches and all that crap and move on from these sporting directors. Go and get sporting directors or someone in to run the club who knows what they're doing at the highest level with the highest caliber of football people, whether that's agents to deal with, whether that's the ownership you got to deal with to try and convince them to buy a player or whatever. You need people in who are prepared to come out and face up when things go right and they go wrong. And at the moment, these sporting directors, they hide a lot. They're hiding behind the ownership. And I just feel as though if they came out and spoke, or the ownership came out and spoke like they said they would do, then I think the fans would have a little bit more respect for them. But at the moment, they're not prepared to do that. And I think that's where a lot of the distrust comes from. They're not prepared to put their neck out on the line and say, this is what we're going for. We apologise, things aren't going quite right, but we are prepared to fix it, and we're looking to fix it in the future. Even if it was a few tweets or, a long worded letter on the club website, something that is full of substance, not just words that have been put together in a few paragraphs, a proper letter to the fans explaining what on earth they are planning to do with this football club, because there's been no mention of the stadium. The stadium's gone flat again. No one knows what's going on with the stadium. No shirt sponsor still. Sporting directors that are getting on everybody's nerves. A team that it's so up and down. Managers change every 5 minutes. The people that are coming into the club, like Liam Rosenior, nothing bad to say about him, but he is a young, inexperienced guy, not the sort of person that Chelsea have been looking to get in the past. We've gone from Pochettino to Potter to Enzo Maresca to Liam Rosenior. These are not household names. Pochettino, to a degree, he did quite a good spell at Spurs and whatnot, but again, still not someone we can really get behind. He's more in the Rafa Benitez column than he is the Thomas Tuchel column. Let's just say that. I'll leave it there. Chris, over to you, mate. Sorry, it's a long old ramble there. I do apologise. But for the remainder of this season, we're going to stick together and hope the players can win more games than they lose, and that might just be enough to scramble over the line for 4th or 5th position. But I'm not holding my breath. Let's just say that at the moment.
Yeah, I think you can hear it in our voices, can't you, that Joe and I are struggling a little bit. I think, I've noticed this a lot across a lot of the conversation after the game from, for want of a better phrase, content creators. Sorry, I'm driving. Can hear that noise. Content creators. God, is that what we are now? As podcasters, I guess we are. And I think the general feeling is, I think everyone is in a similar boat. I think this has really rocked us, actually. Maybe it's a combination of the 2 games together. I was in midweek in the Newcastle game, but I think everyone's feeling the same. They're just a bit rocked by where Chelsea are as a club, and perhaps some have been saying this or certainly I know certain people have been saying it for a long time. Perhaps Joe and I have been a little bit more glass half full and seeing the bigger positive picture. And, I'm not going to change who I am. I think I am, generally a pretty positive guy about Chelsea and try and look for the positives where they are. And there still are plenty. There still are plenty. But it's a tough one. It's a really, really tough one to break down. Obviously, I'm going to talk about the PSG game in midweek in a second, but I just want to sort of finish with a final thought on this. Joe summed it up really well there in terms of what needs to happen. It's clear that the frustrating thing is we all know what needs to happen. It's so blindingly obvious, and that is obviously by experience. What is frustrating, I think, is that when you see us play well, and there have been plenty of times this season where we've been really, really good. I don't have to tell you, but the Barcelona game, Napoli away at times, Villa away was brilliant. There have been plenty of games where you've looked at us and think we can be a really good side. And what's frustrating is I honestly don't think we are more than 2 or 3 really good players away from challenging at the very, very top. And I mean genuinely challenging for a title. I really believe that. Now, there's a lot of average players in the squad that we know. I think you'd have to improve that a little bit as well in terms of the squad players. But the frustrating thing is you bring in a top goalkeeper, you bring in a top centre-back, you bring in leadership in those 2 areas as well. I think that's one of the important things. It's not just being a good player, it's being a leader. And, we'll talk about other positions later in the season, but we're not a million miles away. And it just needs a change. It needs the sort of the stubbornness, as Joe talked about, to be put to one side and to make a change. And we'll have to see what happens. I listened to quite a depressing podcast in the week, actually, which has maybe led to a little bit to my mood on this, but it was, I think it's called the Football Finance Podcast, and they did a bit of a breakdown of Chelsea's financial situation, because obviously we put out, I think, record losses, didn't we, in the latest financial report. And one of the guys doing it is a Chelsea fan, the other is a kind of finance expert on all things sport. And they basically said that Chelsea have really obviously made a lot of mistakes. They talked about the shirt sponsor stuff and just the general obvious things that we can all see. But the interesting one for me is they felt that Chelsea have really misread the market, which is that really outside of England, outside the Premier League, and then actually more specifically outside of about 6 clubs in England, there really aren't many clubs out there who can pay top money for players. And so if the model is to, buy a 30 or 40 million pound player and then, or, let's take Madueke, buy a 30 million pound player, see what he can do. And if he doesn't go to the absolute where you want him to, doesn't feel like he's going to be the game-changing starter that you hope the Madueke would be, sell him on for 50 or 60 million and make a good money on it. And the point they were making was there's only genuinely 5 or 6 clubs that are going to be in the market for that player, which is why Chelsea obviously sold him to Arsenal, because it isn't the days where there are loads of clubs in Italy and Spain and Germany who are going to pay that sort of money for Madueke. The market is very, very small. Who else would have been in for him if it wasn't Arsenal? We're probably thinking, would Liverpool have a look? Man United, Spurs, Man City wouldn't, but it's that group of clubs. And so there's so many players in the Chelsea books now where, say Delap had a decent season, which he obviously hasn't, but say you were looking to bring him 50 million on for him or 60, make a good profit on the 30 that you spent. Again, who's paying 50 or 60 million for Delap? It's just not many, certainly not many outside of England, if any. And I think that's one of the worrying things about the model and the direction that they've gone in. What I'll finish my final thing on this is I've always stood by the fact that I don't buy into the idea that they don't want to win, because I think fundamentally they know they have to win to build a profitable business, which is what they ultimately need to do for their shareholders. So the idea that they don't care about winning on the pitch, I don't buy into. And I think that you only have to look at players like Moise Caicedo and Enzo Fernandez, purchases like that, to realise that that's not a money-making move. That is to try and win on the pitch. However, they've done it terribly. I think we can say that now. And again, I keep teasing the fact we are going to do a big breakdown of where all the money has been spent in the next international break, which I think is after the Everton game, with Roland, who did a breakdown for us a year ago, and we're going to get Roland back on. He's done a really good breakdown of where the money's been spent for us to talk through on the pod. But the fact is, without a teaser ahead of that, it's been spent badly, hasn't it? If you could go back and go, right, give us the money back, let's have another go, you'd spend it better. And I think that's what, as fans, is infuriating. It's such a waste. And it's just, we've taken a lot of heat, haven't we, as Chelsea fans in the last 2 or 3 years, from opposition fans who look at us and think, what is going on? We all get asked it, people are laughing at us, etc. And I played football this morning, and the first thing people were saying to me was like, "Oh, are we going to do a huddle by the football?" Or, it's sort of, we're just a laughing stock. As Dre said, yes, it just brings on unnecessary heat to us. And obviously for years people have been saying, "Oh, why are Chelsea wasting money? What are you doing?" And then when we had that little summer moment and got to the Champions League, thought, well, actually, maybe there is something here, and you could silence the critics for a little bit. But it's hard to defend it, isn't it? It's really hard to defend your club and defend the badge right now with what's going on. So yeah, we'll see. But it's the longest pod we'll ever have done, this pod, and I think it is for the reason that it just feels like it's come to a head where we feel there's a lot to be said. And we're just pretty worried and disappointed with the club. But anyway, move on. Oh God, PSG on Tuesday. I mean, the first thing to say is it is a bit of a joke, isn't it, that they've had the whole week to prepare. Their game obviously got moved in the French league, so they've had a complete break ahead of the game. When you look at kind of the amount of energy that Chelsea put in Paris, and obviously PSG did as well, what that will do for them in terms of them coming in completely fresh with their style of football, their high press, etc. It's, the last thing that we really needed. At 4-2, even at 4-2, I think I'd be saying now, get the first goal and anything could happen. Crazy night at the Bridge. We've seen it before. Some of the greatest nights in Chelsea history, from Barcelona to Napoli, have been trailing the first leg, going ahead, smashing teams apart in that first half, and the Bridge can be a really, really special place on those nights. I think we all think 5-2, it's too many, isn't it? It's just too hard, and we might go ahead in the game, we might get an early little flourish, but it's such an uphill task to think you can turn it over a 3-goal deficit on the basis that, let's face it, we all expect PSG to score at least 1, maybe 2. But look, what am I hoping? He's going to have to go strong. I don't think you can play the European champions and not go full strength. So there's going to be no question of not prioritising the game and thinking of the Premier League, of course. I think for me, come out with a positive result. I think you need it as a club. So even if you can win the game 2-1, something like that. Go out with a little bit of pride. I think I'd prefer that right now than, it sounds really defeatist, doesn't it? But kind of going all guns blazing and getting smashed again, and the aggregate score being horrible. I just don't think, to be honest, the club could really, and the fans could really take that right now. That is incredibly defeatist, isn't it? But I think it shows the sort of feeling I have in the mood at the moment. Team-wise, you wouldn't expect it to be massively different, would you, to what played away from home? I think I'd like to see Andre Santos probably come in, and I'd like to see Mamadou Sarr come in. Obviously, both have got good experience of playing against PSG, having been at Strasbourg. I'd bring those two in. But other than that, we don't have a huge number of options, do we? And we don't think Esteban is going to be probably fit yet. Again, we've really missed him, haven't we? I was thinking this yesterday. We've really missed him with his injury. I think he's shown us. I mean, he's shown us so many signs this season of what an amazing talent he is. Hasn't always been super consistent. He hasn't been electric every single game, but there's been enough in most games that you think, yeah, a game like yesterday could have done with him. I think he would have really enjoyed the space in Paris. And yeah, if we are to get Champions League, and obviously Villa have just, as I'm recording, lost to Man United, so they're the ones we have to look to reel in without a doubt. I think we could. So it's not over in that respect. I think we're going to need Esteban in that run in as well. And you know what? Let's finish on a positive. All things said, as bad as it feels right now, if Chelsea can get back in the Champions League, which I really think they've got a good chance to, and finish top 4, top 5, and if we can go and win the FA Cup, which again, we've got a really good chance to get to the semi-final, and then it's anyone's game. And we've seen how good we can be on a one-off occasion. Chelsea really can be good. That is what I aimed for at the start of the season. Really, it was getting back in the Champions League, winning the FA Cup. Obviously, I'd like to have been closer to the title winners. But you take that, and I would be very, very happy. So it isn't all over, but it's feeling low. And I think on Joe and I's behalf, I hope this hasn't been too tough a listen for people. Let us know what you think of the situation. You can get in touch, obviously, at hello@1905podcast.com and via our Instagram as well, which is 1905podcast. We do always love to hear from you guys. I'm sorry that we haven't necessarily been our most upbeat selves on the pod this week, but we've got to say how we feel it. I think that's the whole point of the podcast, right? And yeah, it's been a tough one this week for us, but we'll keep going and we'll all stick together, and whatever happens, every little thing's gonna be all right. We'll see you next time. Those were the Chelsea notes for this week. If you enjoyed the podcast, do us a favour and share it with a fellow Blue. And we'd love to hear your thoughts, so leave us a review wherever you're listening. Wherever you may be, stay carefree, and remember, every little thing's gonna be all right.
How many discounts does USAA Auto Insurance offer? Too many to say here. Multi-vehicle discount, safe driver discount, new vehicle discount, storage discount, legacy.
How many discounts will you stack up? Tap the banner or visit usaa.com/auto discounts. Restrictions apply.
It's tax season, and at LifeLock, we know you're tired of numbers. But here's a big one you need to hear. Billions. That's the amount of money in refunds the IRS has flagged for possible identity fraud. Now here's another big number. 100 million. That's how many data points LifeLock monitors every second. If your identity is stolen, we'll fix it guaranteed. One last big number. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast for the threats you can't control. Terms apply.